suit. We have the plate number.
Prior to our getting our hands on the unit, there was motor oil bubbling up from the ground.
Motoring 93 is brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, one tough motor oil. And Midas, your under-the-car specialists for imports and domestics.
The year was 1987. Only 250 of these cars are manufactured. The price tag then about $500,000. Since then, it has gone over $1 million. And this car is not street legal in North America. What is it? Well, you think about it for a while. We'll come back and show you the rest of the vehicle later on in the program. But first, we're going to talk about maintaining your car. Now, Bill Gardner has told us once, he has told us 1,000,000 times, the nicest thing you can do to your car is change that oil on a regular basis. But hey, who's got the time these days? I remember taking my car to the dealer. It took a whole day just to get the oil changed. Well, life has changed, and so has changing your oil. Everywhere you look now, you see fast lube places. Even dealers now are getting into the act. But are they getting the job done in the 15 minutes to a half hour that they advertise? Well, this week we thought we'd try and find out.
It's not hard to find a garage that will change your oil and filter. But since it's impossible to visit them all, we decided to drop in on one of the original fast lube operations. This Minute Lube is located in Hamilton, Ontario. They promise the job will be done in 15 minutes.
Okay, there's a transmission pan gasket leak, transaxle seal, and the oil sensor unit's leaking a bit. That's your service report complete.
Well, the fast lube industry began somewhere back in the 60s, very slowly. And with the onslaught of the self-serve gas station in the 70s, the closure of a lot of service stations, the concept of the fast lube industry really took off in the mid to late 70s, and through the 80s has grown tremendously. There's no question that in the beginning there was a lot of skepticism about the industry as a whole. But as time has gone on and people have serviced their cars at fast lubes for years, they realize the value of it in terms of saving time and the quality of the workmanship that's done in these outlets. The appeal is obviously time, in and out very quickly. There's no real waiting. The customer pulls up and his car is serviced in approximately 15 minutes and he's on his way.
Bay number 2 ready for oil?
Well, I think that the dealerships definitely have been slow out of the gate with regard to the impact of the fast lube industry. I remember when I was involved in the early days back in the 70s that the dealerships really didn't take us very seriously. They didn't think that we were much of a threat and that our concept would hold up. And of course now that's changed as you see them begin to try and catch up to us in terms of the service that we provide.
Well, I think it's really convenient for me because, like I said, in my younger days, I used to change my own oil, and I was able to crawl underneath the car at that time and do these things. But now, as I said, with the mini lube, that I'm getting too old to do that now, so I leave that to the younger people, and I think I can afford it a little more now than I used to be able to. When you're buying a home and everything else, you couldn't afford to get everything done at that time.
There you go, sir. Your oil is back to the full mark again.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Full service, base price $29.99. That's including the frame oil filter, the 10-to-B30 Quaker State oil. Chassis has been lubed underneath the vehicle. Windshield washer fluid was topped up to the windshield. That's included, no charge. The crankcase filter is replaced.
Well, basically our concept has been taken from looking after the customer from his standpoint, what he'd like when he comes in. That's why you'll see people standing in the bay areas watching the work done, and we also offer a waiting room as well. The time element is really the key. Customers come in, the main reason they come here is because they can come in and get the job done and be on their way. It's very convenient for them.
Changing your oil is important maintenance. You obviously feel the fast lube places are pretty good, or?
Just certain ones. I've had problems in the past, but I found that the ones I've had problem with have been the ones where they've only had teenagers out of school doing part-time jobs and that. it's not a full-time job for them, so they really don't feel like they want to give you 100%. A place like this is their job, so they give you a little extra effort when you come in, which makes all the difference in the world.
So your best advice to someone who would like to go to a fast lube place?
A place like this, check it out first, make sure that they have full-time staff, not just part-time staff. It makes a big difference.
This is a Fram PH8 oil filter just taken from a car here at Minute Lube. This filter normally would go from here into the dumpster and from there to the landfill site here in Hamilton. Currently, this filter would contain approximately 1/3 of a liter of motor oil, which ultimately, when the can rusted at the landfill, would be dispensed into the environment. Here at Minute Lube, we're trying to do something about this problem. We are taking our filters and putting them into this oil filter crusher. And we close the lid, and hydraulically the filter is compressed, removing approximately 95% of the motor oil and contaminants from the crushed filter.
And that's what's left of your filter.
And that's what's left of our filter after we crush it. From there, these filters are shipped to a recycler where the metal is reused.
Did you not come across some leaky oil recently?
Yes, we were excavating in a former fast lube site, and actually we just had to shut that site down today because of the improper handling of motor oil in that site prior to our getting our hands on the unit. There was motor oil bubbling up from the ground.
Well, I've been coming here since shortly after they opened, and I find the service very good. I've never had to wait very long, and when I come into the bay, the fellows usually only take their 10 or 15 minutes, and I've always found them very friendly, very nice. So I can't complain.
And another nice thing is the fill-ups in the water, like for your windshield washer. If you come in and you think you need servicing and you don't really require it, they check your tires and they give you a fill-up.
Well, that's what they've just...
That's with the windshield washer, you know, or your antifreeze like in winter. That is marvelous too.
But that's what they've just done for me now. They've given me a fill-up. And I'll be back afterwards, and I'm going to have my oil and grease job done.
All right. Good luck. Happy motoring.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do I think of fast lube shops? Stick around, I'll tell you in just a minute.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
This week on Test Drive, we look at one of the much ballyhooed LH bodies. This is the 1993 Chrysler Intrepid. Now it, along with the Vision and Concorde, are the three cars that Chrysler have quite literally bet the farm on. The question is, will they ever get the farm back? As you probably know, the Intrepid is a totally new automobile. Indeed, about the only recognisable component is the 3.3-litre V6 found under the hood. Power is rated at 153 horses and 177 pounds-feet of torque. During the usual skid pad test, the car required just over 9 seconds to reach 100 kilometers an hour. Out on the open road, this nice torquey engine ensures more than adequate performance. For those who want a little more oomph, you can opt for the larger 3.5-litre V6 that delivers 214 stampeding horsepower. Matched with either engine is a totally new 4-speed automatic transmission complete with overdrive. The shifts are smooth and the gear ratio is such you can derive the very best from either engine. Now, many of you may have noticed that the powertrain has been mounted longitudinally rather than the more conventional transversely mounted method. Chrysler suggests putting the engine in long ways helps reduce the amount of noise, vibration and harshness passed on to the passengers, as well as improving weight distribution. During the pylon test, the car tracked a surprisingly good line for a large family-oriented car. I detected only mild understeer when nearing the limit, and there was virtually no body roll. Credit for this wonderful display goes to the aforementioned weight distribution and the touring-tuned suspension. Mind you, a very large set of Goodyear Eagle GAs certainly helped a lot. On the road, some may find the ride a tad on the firm side for a family car. For me, however, the balance between sportiness and comfort is just about perfect. For a car that's been very well thought out and extremely well engineered, Chrysler missed the boat on one important item. There's no shift lock on the automatic transmission. Now the shift lock is put there to prevent you from pulling it into gear without first firmly planting your foot on the brake. As you can see, I don't have my foot on the brake and you can pull it into any gear. It's a situation that really needs to be addressed. The Intrepid offers a large trunk with a nice low lift over and very handy cargo net. The only thing that deserves comment here is that despite the size, there are some fairly large intrusions into the usable space, and that there is no pass-through of any description. Now, as well as adopting the cab forward design up front, they've also moved the rear wheels back. Now, in doing that, they've accomplished two things. First of all, you get a longer door, which makes it much easier to get in and out of the back area. The other thing, it gives you enormous amounts of leg room. As you can see, there's almost enough room back here to have a game of touch football. Up front, both passengers are treated to 8-way power seats, with the driver getting an extra adjustment for lumbar support. In terms of comfort, there's little to complain about because of the amount of support they offer. The dash on the Intrepid is black on white by day, reversing to a bluey green on black at night. Now, either format is legible and all information can be picked up at a glance. All other driving controls and the switches for the numerous power options fall readily to hand. Other interior amenities worthy of mention include cup holders, a set of dual sun visors a la Taurus, and a separate set of heater vents for the rear passenger. On the safety front, the Intrepid scores very well indeed. There are airbags for both driver and passenger, 3-point seat belts for all outboard passengers, child-proof rear door locks, and optional anti-lock brakes as well as traction control. One of the problems that has plagued a lot of Chrysler products in the past is that the quality of the fit and finish has been a very hit and miss affair. On this Intrepid, things have been improved immensely. The door seams are even, the hood spacings on either side are very nice and even. Inside, the door panels have been attached and secured and they have a nice substantial feel. Now, all of this bodes very well for Chrysler because it'll eliminate a lot of those annoying rattles and squeaks. The other bright point about this car is exclusively built in Bramalea, Ontario. During the brake test, the front disc rear drum setup hauled the Intrepid to a halt in 120 feet from 80k. Now, I suggest you go with the optional anti-lock brakes. Then you get discs at all four corners. This setup shortens the stopping distances quite a lot, as well as providing great directional stability. Style is a very subjective subject, and as such I rarely comment upon a vehicle's appearance. But the new Intrepid is such a looker I have to comment. From any angle, the appearance is super by any standards, and not at all like the cookie-cutter shapes produced by many other manufacturers. Combine that with roominess, comfort and performance, and you begin to understand why Lee Iacocca babbles on about his home run. Earlier I alluded to the amount of money that Chrysler have invested in bringing the LH models to market. In my view, having road tested this vehicle, it's money well spent, because despite going into the toughest market segment, this car has the wherewithal to succeed. And by the way, Chrysler will not lose the farm. Now let's update our long-term testers. The G20 is performing beyond expectation thus far. The costs incurred have been limited to the first oil change, which cost us the princely sum of $28. As with the Maxima, the dealership experience was painless. To date, we're averaging around 30 miles per gallon, which is substantially better than expected, and the limited slip diff is making the going a lot smoother in the early winter conditions. The Subaru Legacy wagon is beginning to come into its own. As the weather deteriorates, the full-time four-wheel drive and anti-lock brakes are earning their keep. The only negative comment is that the overall fuel economy has dropped from 27 miles per gallon to 22 miles per gallon, and this new figure is much thirstier than it should be, and so the next oil change will get the dealer to check things out. The MX-6 is gaining respect from all drivers. The longer you live with the car, the more you like it. To date, the overall fuel mileage is running up around 27 miles per gallon. Now, given the enthusiasm that everybody drives the car with, This figure is much better than anticipated. As with the other two vehicles, we've had the oil and filter changed at a cost of $50.
We gave you just a peek of this vehicle off the top of the program, and in case you haven't already guessed, you're looking at the Porsche 959, and its home temporarily at least is at Pfaff Porsche in Newmarket, Ontario, the oldest Porsche dealer in Canada. And joining me right now is Jeff Pfaff. And Jeff, first of all, tell me what the 959 is doing here and a little bit of history and why this car is so rare.
Well, the Pfaff, the 959 is here at Pfaff Motors for a regular maintenance service. It's here on a special permit. A gentleman who owns the car will be driving it here for a few months and then maybe traveling down through the States. It's the first Porsche dealer in Canada or in North America, for that matter, to service a 959. Most of these 959 Porsches, which total 250, 50 which were made for racing, and 200 total were made for street use. The only authorized output or dealer for service would be Stuttgart, the Porsche factory itself. And there's one gentleman there who is strictly works on the 959. This dealer Pfaff Motors was given special permission to work on the car if needed.
It's not street legal, am I correct, in North America?
That's right. It doesn't meet the bumper or emission regulations for North America. Therefore, the small numbers that they produced the car, it was not financially viable to bring the car to North America, for that matter. It's a 2.8 liter flat six, liquid cooled heads, twin plugs. It's an all-wheel drive system with 450 horsepower. The 959 is capable of a top speed of somewhere around 200 miles per hour. And a 0 to 60 time of approximately 3.6, 3.7 seconds, which makes it one of the world's fastest production cars.
If I wanted to buy this Porsche 959, how much cash would I have to part with, you think?
Quite a bit. Current market value is probably somewhere between $700,000 and $900,000 US. The car originally sold for approximately $400,000 to $500,000 US, and at one point was speculators were purchasing the car as an investment and flipping the car for as much as 1.6 million US.
Okay, so I'm not buying the 959 this year. Incidentally, if Jeff Pfaff seems familiar to you, well, he does race a Corrado for the Pfaff Porsche dealership here on the Firestone Firehawk series. All right, we're now going to leave this garage and head over to the Motoring 93 garage. This week, Bill Gardner is going to talk about lubrication, and we've also asked him to give a few comments, his opinion on those fast lube operations that we talked about earlier in the program.
You know, Brad, I think these fast lube shops are just a great thing, and I actually encourage my customers to take their vehicles through them on a regular basis. But what I tell them is to take the vehicle into the lube shop just prior to bringing it into me for the rest of the service, because I want to verify that in fact these guys did hit all the grease fittings, they did check all the fluid levels, etc. Now, if you've got a simple vehicle like a Ford Tempo, for example, there are no grease fittings, so you really can't go too far wrong lubricating and changing the oil in a vehicle like that. But if you've got a four-wheel drive vehicle, for example, like this Jeep or a Toyota 4Runner, a Blazer, etc., you've got an awful lot of grease fittings and they're on some pretty expensive machinery, so you want to make sure that they're done properly. And you've also got a lot of lubricants to check for in vehicles like that. The front differential in this four-wheel drive, for example, needs to be checked. Moving down here, we've got the transfer case from this four-wheel drive. It's out of the vehicle because we're doing a clutch job, so you can actually see the fill and drain plugs very easily. And this unit holds a couple of liters of automatic transmission fluid. Very important to check the condition of these lubricants as well. So it's important that you've got a person that recognizes good from bad. Now, if you look up in here, you can see the manual transmission. We've got it out, as I mentioned, for the clutch job. And there's fill and drain plugs on that to be checked as well. And you want to check the condition of it. We've built ourselves a little platform if you're wondering what this is. Now, moving to the back of the vehicle, you can see the rear differential. And this one, of course, has another differential in the front. It's a four-wheel drive, as I mentioned. And both of these units need to be checked for lubricant level and condition, because on a four-wheel drive like this, it's not uncommon for this unit to actually be submerged in muck or water, and that lubricant can become milky and contaminated. If you recognize that, then right away it needs to be changed. before that damages any of those expensive parts. So make sure that whoever's doing this kind of work on your vehicle knows what the heck they're doing and is doing all these. And I suggest that you familiarize yourself with your own vehicle. Go through the owner's manual, talk to a mechanic, buy a shop manual, figure out all these particulars of your vehicle. You may not want to do this messy work yourself, but at least you'll be able to verify that the people you're paying to do it are doing it right. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 93.
Last week, we had a look at the Camaro RS. It's the fastest police cruiser in Canada. This week, Motoring 93 dropped in to see how officers are trained, not only for the Camaro, but all other police vehicles.
Yeah, dispatcher, this is 210. I'm backing up 211.
And we use this area for all our police vehicle training, whether they're cars, motorcycles, vans and trucks. And right now we're engaged training what we call our 2-day advanced driver training course. And this is for officers that are in the field, and it's an update for them throughout their career.
Okay, yesterday you did your pursuit, today you did the pursuit. There was a lot more control of the vehicle. What was the major difference compared to yesterday?
Just the steering ability and the doing one thing at a time.
So applying the techniques you were taught.
That's right.
How did it help the vehicle?
Smoother control.
Smoother control. Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to show you that the techniques that you use most of the time are the techniques that will come out as you go through all the different variations of police driving. Well done, officer.
We started a program called the Advanced Expressway Driver Training Program. And this is a 40-hour course. It's very extensive. And officers that are allowed to drive a vehicle like the Camaro must meet the standard of the Advanced Expressway course. So any officer that has driven that vehicle has come through our course and passed.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns gasolines. Now, at most stations, you've got several choices of octane, and at this particular station, you've actually got 4 different octane levels of unleaded fuel. Now, which one's right for your car? Well, in many cases, your owner's manual or a decal on the car may give you guidance in that respect, and there are vehicles with high-output engines that require premium unleaded fuel all the time. But most cars and trucks will run fine on regular unleaded. But there may be instances that require you use super in those vehicles. For example, driving into a strong headwind with higher loads, trailering, or driving in mountainous conditions may require premium unleaded fuel to prevent engine ping. Make sure that you've got the correct fuel level. If you need it, use that higher octane fuel. Make sure it's in the tank before you encounter those conditions. That's your Midas tip of the week.
We're back here with our Porsche 959. Now, we've been hearing a lot about getting your oil changed on this week's program, but what if you want to change the oil in this Porsche? Come over here, flip this lever, and up pops the cap. For oil, not gas, oil. I mean, you wouldn't want to get confused when you drive your 959 into the gas station. Mind you, I don't think any of us will have that problem, if you know what I mean. Well, that's it for now. We'll see you next week for more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Motoring 93 has been brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, one tough motor oil. And Midas, your under-the-car specialists for imports and domestics.